One of my favorite looks to recreate on a piece of furniture is the chippy, layered and distressed finish. Something that almost feels as if it fell from a chateau after 200 years of wear and tear. And today I'm going to be doing that slightly different with a brand new product to me. The good people at Dixie Belle Paint Company sent me a hamper and I received some of their Terra Clay Paint. Now I'm told that this paint is awesome for that kind of finish and I'm super excited to find out. So let's take a closer look. As usual at this stage, I like to take you through my train of thought for the overall design of this piece of furniture. So we're going to start with colour. So when I think of chateau pieces of furniture, I think of soft blues, taupes, greys, whites. All of those beautiful soft muted shades I think really work well on a chateau inspired piece. So some of those shades we're going to definitely use on this piece. Maybe the brighter and darker shades underneath, building up to a lighter shade on top and then distressing back to see if we can reveal some of those shades underneath and some of this dark timber as well. The other thing that I would like to address at this point, this piece of furniture, although it is solid, it's well made, it is a modern reproduction. And the thing that I'm not keen on is these bat wing handles. Now, I think of bat wing handles as a Victorian inspired handle, and I don't think the two things really work well. So I've been through my haul of handles to try and find 10 matching handles, and I just cannot find anything. So my solution to that problem is I've got these cheap Amazon finds, these little round brass knobs, which I thought would be perfect, but unfortunately they sit in the apertures a little bit lost. They're a little bit too small. And then I remembered that Prima sent me a gorgeous moulding, which this is called Soho Fusion. And I thought I could use that as a back plate. One of these, I haven't decided which one, as a back plate. I'm gonna sprinkle in or dust in a little bit of Posh Chalk pigment in a gold. It seems kind of pointless because I am going to paint over the handles in the end anyway, but I thought if I can match up the colour, then if any of it shows later on, it doesn't matter. So I will be casting them throughout the project. I will show you just one cast somewhere in the video, but I've got 10 to make and they take 15 minutes to dry. I've got one mould, so I'm just going to do it as and when I stop for breaks in between drying time. The other thing, stick with me guys, I know I talk a lot, but I just kind of want to take you in here so that you're kind of coming on the journey with me. I've decided that I'm going to paint with chalk mineral paint, one layer, not everywhere, kind of intermittently in the colour Hurricane. That is a grey taupe colour. I figured that if that goes on first, I'm not going to get too much of the wood coming back and I may get some of this shade back. So that's what I'm going to do. But before I do all of that, I've got to give the piece a good old clean, because as you can see, it's really not pretty. This has been at the back of my workshop for some time, and I'm going to be using Terra Clean. Now you need 2 heaped teaspoons into a gallon of hot water. Mix that together and then you can decant it into a spray bottle to clean your whole piece. You will need protective gear, gloves on for that, and a cloth. Once that's been cleaned off, I will go in with some clear, clean water and give it a good old clean back down, leave it to dry, and then we're good for our first coat. So now you can enjoy watching me clean this piece of furniture. for the piece of furniture to dry and the wood filler to dry before sanding, I thought it would be a good time to take you through casting a mould with easy casting resin, and I'm going to be using Posh chalk pigments in the colour pale gold. So first thing I'm going to do is take a small art brush and dust the mould with the Posh chalk pigments, making sure to get into all of those details. I'm going to probably do 3 different moulds because I haven't decided fully which one I definitely want to do. Now the pigment will change, it won't be as bright, the gold, once it's cast. It's just something that happens with the resin, but it will have more of a gold appearance. So if I do distress back and I hit some of the gold of the handle, it won't matter too much. So we'll do this one straight into all of the crevices. Go again. You can do this with mica powder as well. I know that Prima have mica powder and gold powder, so you can grab those products from Prima if you find them on their website. Right, so they're ready to go. Close the lid on that. Right, easy casting resin is easy. So all you need to do, you have part 1 and part 2, or in this case, side A and B. And all you need is even amounts. So I'm going to take the 2 cups and I'm going to eyeball it. I need to open these. Let me open them first. So I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way of the cup. That's good. Lid back on. Same thing for this one. Get those cups level. Once you have the 2 parts level, take another vessel and you're just going to pour both of them in and mix together for about 30 seconds. Pop them to one side. And then you can pour into the mould. Waste not, want not. We've managed to cast one more with the leftovers. 15 minutes and they should be ready to release. So I've come to a decision of this back plate, which is the kind of square oval in shape, this one, with a lovely detail around the edges. I figure for this piece, it fits really, really nicely. I love all of those details. I figure when I paint it later on, some of the paint will sit into one or two of those details. Also, as you can see, the handle and the plate are two different colours. I'm not worrying about that. They're pretty close in shade, but these will be spray painted with a bronze effect oil-based spray paint, so they will match in, then some Terra paint over the top, I'm thinking. So now time to apply a random coat of chalk mineral paint, which is the colour Hurricane Grey. And I'm just going to use a angled brush just to apply it here and there. Mainly the edges I will leave kind of wood with one or two splashes of paint, just so that when I distress the Terra paint later, we get this really random effect of layers of paint. So the chalk mineral paint has dried. It's had a good few hours of drying time. If you can, probably leave this overnight. The reason that I went in with chalk mineral paint is that I know that this will give really good adhesion, and when we do a lot of the distressing parts of the process, not all of this paint will go away. Unlike the Terra Clay Paint, it's water reactive. It will chip away nicely. So I wanted a firm base with one or two splashes of the dark showing through. So speaking of which, the dark, I've pulled out onyx in the Terra Clay Paint, and I want to add a few more speckles of dark round the edges, here and there, randomly random. I'm thinking of where most likely will be distressed back to, but not a solid coat. And then we'll move into one or two of the other colours to go over the top of that. I've pulled out one of the worst chip brushes that I've got in my brush collection. It's a natural fibre brush, and it's all splayed and a bit broken. And I'm just going to use a pouncing mode around the piece of furniture just to add the onyx in those areas. pale a white, exposing some of the blues and the blacks and the greys underneath. I'm going to end up with a soft blue on the surface and use the white within that stencil pattern, or a soft creamy white. I'm going to play around with mixing well, this later on. What I'm going to do now is add a white lid, because I want to look at some chippy scratchy stuff that is white on the lid. I think that is really beautiful over the blue, and then a white creamy pattern over the whole surface. I hope I'm not making a mistake. I'm sure it's going to be a long video now, but I'm going to enjoy the process. Dry, I'm going to turn my attentions back to the back plates and handles. So as you can see, two very different golds, but I haven't finished there yet. The pigment was placed inside the resin just to make sure that these didn't come back white if anything chipped away at any point. But I really do want to go belt and braces, make sure that the paint on here stays on forever. The handles notoriously are going to get the most use. So the look that I'm going for is a dark handle, a little bit like the original hardware. This is kind of a brushed brass or oiled bronze. I really like dark handles on pieces of furniture. I don't know why, it just looks really good. So I had a little play late last night and I've come up with this kind of look. This is one of the samples that I poured yesterday, and I really like that finish. Also, I did the same thing again, but I added a little bit of Terra paint afterwards, which may happen on the overall piece a little later on in the process. But this is my final place where I've ended up, which is, and as you can see, it's pretty close. The two are pretty close. This is probably a little bit more shiny, but I love that dullness to the back plate. And here is the handle. As you can see, the two now marry up quite well. Now, how I've achieved that, I'm going to take you through that step. The first thing that I did was applied a coat of spray paint. This is an oil-based spray paint. I picked this up really cheaply from a local supermarket. It's a bronze colour. You could use a brown or a black, but bronze for me just looks so beautiful. So we're going to spray these all up in the garden so there's lots of ventilation, and just before they come to attack, we're going to be applying a dusting of the pigments once again, and then once that's dried in, we're going to go in with some Posh Chalk patina, which is like a dark wax. So stick with me. Let's take these out into the garden, get them sprayed up, ready to rock and roll. So I'm back in the studio and the back plates and handles have just come to a slight tack, which is now ready to add some more pigment to. So the colour that I'm using is Byzantine Gold. It's one of my all-time favourite Posh Chalk pigments. It also comes in a wax as well, so a mini sort of wax, a little bit like the black that I'm going to be using, the patina. So pigments, patina. We're going to just take the soft brush again and dip into and knock off the excess into the Byzantine Gold, and we're going to just dust everything, and this will help it kind of dry as well. Yes, it looks really blingy. That's okay at this stage. I'm happy for that. We'll go around all of the edges. So at least I know if any of this comes away, it's going to come away to either a gold or a dark. It's not going to come back to white. So that is the first back plate done. Look at the difference. Really does. And that's on. It's on. It's not going anywhere. It's kind of, the powder is so fine, it's stuck into the paint. So it's a really good medium for adding. An oil-based paint is a really good medium for adding the patina to. We'll do another couple. Oops, getting it everywhere. A little bit messy. And what you should feel is that it feels a little bit drier, less tacky, because it's sticking into that tackiness of the wet paint. Now time for my next layer of paint. Everything has hardened and dried really well, and I've got to apply my kind of finishing colour. I've decided to go with a soft blue, but I don't have a soft blue. I only have strong colours. So at this stage, I'm going to mix my own colour to see how well the colours do mix together. I'm pretty sure that they will. I've noticed on the piece when adding the other layers, the paint kind of reactivates really well with a wetness. So when I've been adding wet paint, the two colours merge together quite beautifully. So I'm going to mix in a container my very own custom colour. So I want to go for a soft grey blue. So I've pulled out a few colours. I've got onyx, obviously black and white make a grey, but I want it to be like a smoky, duck eggy grey blue. So another colour that I've got is London blue, which is a little bit more to the greeny side actually. And there is Galaxy as well, which is more of a stronger blue shade. So I'm going to start with Moonbeam, which is a white. I'm going to take it out of the container into my plastic container. So the white is the main base colour to this colour mix. As you can see, look how thick this paint is. It's really lovely. I do need to mix quite a lot of paint for the project. Anything that I have left over, I will most definitely save in this plastic container. It's precious stuff. I don't want to waste any. So in with Moonbeam, and then I'm going to go with the London Blue because it's got a slight greeny edge to it. And I'm going to add just a small amount and then mix together just to see what colour we get. You can see how thick that is. It's like, oh, it's like pudding consistency. It's really lovely. So let's pop that colour in. Yeah, as I suspected, it's going quite aqua. So this shows me it is so highly pigmented, but it is a really pretty colour. Let's pop some onyx in, which is going to make it a little bit more grey in tone. And if that still looks a bit sharp in colour, I can also go in for an orange tone, which should neutralise some of the blue. So let's see how this mixes in. Yeah, these are so very pigmented. Oh yeah, that's really nice. It's a grey blue. I think just a touch more of the London Blue. Here you go. If you can hear the tap, that's Mr. M. He's watering his flowers. Yeah, a little touch more of this. Look at that. Wow. So thick. Yeah, the colours, the pigments mix so beautifully together. So I'm going to go somewhere around this shade. It's like a soft grey blue, and I think it'll be really beautiful on the piece. My custom colour blue has dried and I really love this shade. So I've been thinking about the colours for the stenciling and I've gone with another colour mix. I've used Desert Tan with Moonbeam. So it's a kind of light neutral and I'm going to apply the stencil to the surface. Now, I won't lie to you guys, I'm pretty nervous. If all else fails and it goes wrong, then I shall paint back over with the blue and one or two other colours underneath are not going to hurt. I figure that stenciling over this trim work is going to be pretty tough. I think it's just go for it and see what happens. So I'm going to start with applying the stencil. I could go this way, but I do love this stencil on an angle. So I'm going to start central. I've kind of looked at the stencil in a few different ways and where the pattern might go and how easy it is to apply and wrap around the corners. But I figure that actually starting here in the center, so that circle is dead center to the drawers, and it also, each corner runs off with the drawers at this point, which will give me a good square to work the other stencils in. So this is where it's going. I'm going to slightly tack it down just to hold it in place. And I suppose there may be a little bit of bleed through here and there because of how it's laid. It's not laid completely flat. I have got a little round chip brush. This is natural fibre, which I'm going to use just to pounce. I'm not going to give it full coverage, and if little bits go underneath, then I'll hide it with the distressing. So in with the colour mix, and I'm going to offload on my table just beside me and go for it. I'm now day 3 of this project. All of the stencil work has had overnight to dry. It's good to go for distressing. Now, I know many of you will be screaming at your screens, just top coat Jonathan and put the handles on and call it as is. I know it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely stunning. But I do want to see how the Terra Clay Paint distresses back to some of those undercolours. It's what I set out to do in this project, so I'm going to stick with it, even though my heart says just call it finished. But I can always do another project with the same stencil, the same colours, and have it more clean looking. So we're going to go in with a light distress first and build it up. So you can distress with water, wet distressing, because it's very reactivated with water, this paint. But I'm not going to do that at first because I feel a bit uncomfortable about moving the pattern around. So I'm going to distress with some sanding sponges. Different coarse sanding sponges are always good. I've also got a coarse grit sandpaper, which I may use, and another 180 sanding block, which is kind of foam inside, so it's a gentle distress that we'll get. And I've got a scraper to scrape away some edges, and my favourite tool for creating chippy looks is an old butter knife. This is just an old butter knife, and it's really good for kind of just picking away at the edges to reveal some of those colours. So it's going to happen, it's going to be a long process. Wish me luck. I really hope that this looks good in the end. So that's all of the chipping of the Terra Clay paint on this piece, and I am super happy with the way it's looking. Each individual chip, you can see around the edges some of those other colours that we used underneath. I think it looks very authentic. It's really, really lovely. Also, what I found is the stencil design has kind of receded into the piece. Again, I think that looks like it's got real age now. So I haven't finished with adding a touch more patina and age to this piece, but what I have decided to do is, before I proceed on, I'm going to go in with a water-based top coat just to seal down everything that we have here. I do plan probably to put a little bit of fly speck. my signature look over the top of that. So if I do get one or two rogue fly specks or I'm not happy with the way it's looking, I can at least wipe away once it's got a top coat, and this is preserved and sealed down. So it may happen, it may not. So with Terra Clay Paint, there are a couple of options for a water-based top coat. You have Terra Tough, which is a really tough, strong top coat. Terra Tough has a slight sheen to it. And there is also Terra Seal, which is more of a matte finish. I've decided to go in with the first coat of Terra Seal, and probably the second coat will be Terra Seal as well, once I've got the whole piece where I am super happy with the overall look, and then I can apply my handles to the piece and we're just about close to a finish line. So let's get stuck in with Terra Seal. I'm also using the mini angle brush, and I'm going to take a light touch because remember, water reactive. I just want to have a very light touch over the piece so I don't pull these colours around.